Good evening and welcome everyone to our free webinar this evening on 3 tips for tackling misogyny with children. And I will begin by showing the slides here. Let us see. There we go. And so this is our third monthly webinar. And given a lot of the discussions, a lot of the things that were happening online with the release of adolescence and I suppose raising awareness on what misogyny looks like, how it shows up and what we can do about it, there was feedback from our community about sharing this today. So we'll start with a little introduction to me. My name is Orla McKeating. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a diversity educator, speaker, and storyteller. I'm a white Irish Catholic. I'm not disabled. I'm middle class, and I'm a single mother to a mixed race boy. I grew up in Northern Ireland in the city of Belfast during the Troubles, during the 80s and 90s. So growing up, it was very much a white society. Segregated in terms of Protestant and Catholic. 93% of our education system is still segregated. So we live in quite a unique part of Ireland or the UK. And so whenever I had my son, that was the first time really that I noticed, first of all, a lack of representation in children's books and learning resources. And I did a TED Talk in 2019 about the stigma of single parenting and race issues in Northern Ireland. And from that, quite a few people got in touch about book lists, which I didn't have. So I set up Still I Rise Diversity Storytelling. And this business is basically where our mission is to amplify voices, bridge gaps, and cultivate empathy through the art of storytelling. So we work in schools, we work from early years right up to age 18. We do assemblies, we do learning through story sessions, we do workshops around issues that typically aren't addressed in storybooks or are more difficult to navigate, including race, disability, immigration, diverse families, misogyny, and more. I also offer training for adults as educators and in businesses as well. I have just released a podcast and we sell books and do library audits also. So that's a little background on me. And so we will begin our session today. And I do like to start these sessions with a little bit of a visual because I love visuals. And this one really is around misogyny, is around gender expectations, but it's also about inclusion, about diversity, how we can foster and create spaces where people can be who they want to be, where their identity can be embraced, where their differences and similarities can be accepted and celebrated, and where they can thrive and not just survive. So I really like this one. And as always, our sessions, I do have just some light guidelines on what that looks like. And really, my mission here and our mission as a community is to nurture a culture of learning, to question our own biases and assumptions. And that's something that I'm doing quite a lot myself, to welcome accountability and to encourage curiosity and compassion. And our objectives tonight really are to increase awareness together as a group, to encourage self-reflection. So a lot of this you will know already, but it's all about planting those seeds and to provide practical strategies to empower all of us to take action. So today, the 3 tips for tackling misogyny with children are: recognize and challenge gender bias, foster empathy and respect through conversations, and equip children to be active bystanders. And if we have time, we will have some questions and answers at the end. The recording will finish for that. Everything else will be shared on YouTube tomorrow. So where are we now in terms of misogyny across the board? So at the minute, in terms of violence against women and girls, over 1 million of violence against women and girls related crimes were reported in the years 2022 to 23 in England and Wales. Now, that doesn't include Northern Ireland, but that means there's over 3,000 offences daily. And over 70% of these victims were victims of domestic abuse and were female. 57% of girls aged 13 to 21 reported receiving sexist comments online. And a 2024 survey revealed that 53% of young women aged 18 to 30 face discrimination at work, with the figure rising to 61% for racially minoritized or global majority young women. The rise of the manosphere, I kind of touched on that whenever we started. So a recent survey in 2023 found that 45% of British males aged 16 to 24 held a positive view of the influencer Andrew Tate, who is known for promoting misogynistic content. Educators also report an increase in disrespect and harassment from male students. And members of these communities online have been found to cherry pick and misinterpret academic studies to validate their anti-feminist beliefs. So it is quite a critical, quite a dangerous time. And the dangers really of inaction at this point can really lead young men and boys into a path of radicalization, which can result in higher misogynistic crimes, abuse, violence, and it can also, this perpetuation of toxic masculinity and suppression of emotional expression can really affect the mental health of both men and boys, and it also can threaten the progress made to gender equality. So number one, recognize and challenge gender bias. And we all are very aware of what this looks like. So this is really a reminder and a call to action of how this can show up. So common examples of everyday bias in toys include gender toy categories and roles. So how many times have you gone into a shop, you've a blue section here, you've a pink section here, feeding into stereotypes, into color coding, into stereotypes and expectations. We have some examples here of a pink globe and a blue globe, and you will notice, if you can see there on the pictures, that the images in that globe are very, very different. So that really is increasing gender gaps and really promoting inequality and gender inequality. So there's stereotypical narratives. Now, this has proved a lot, but it still exists. So, for example, boys being builders, doing work that includes physical strength and bravery, and girls being fed different marketing languages or visuals all around nurturing, caring, fashion, beauty, and nurturing. Also, the reinforcement of harmful social norms. And these two books here are an example of the girls to be gorgeous and the boy is to be clever. So common examples of this in girls' toys could be dolls, play kitchens, cleaning sets, princess fairy costumes, and this really promotes roles of caregiving, of beauty, of being a domestic person, and of passivity. The representation really is focusing on hobbies, on socializing, and beauty focused. Language and imagery can be around fantasy, relationships, beauty, and the color coding here really is focused on pink. The skills encouraged here are nurturing and manipulability, and the effects of this can really limit career expectations, self-esteem, self-confidence, and also body image issues. Then on the other side, we see boys' toys that can feature action figures, building blocks, toy weapons, firefighter, soldier costumes, which really feeds into heroism, competition, construction, sometimes aggression, strength, power, and the language in imagery is often around this power structure, control, and very often conflict. A very common color here is for boys, and it really is encouraging mathematical skills, aggression, conflict, and it can limit emotional behavior, emotional expression, and it can discourage cross-gender play. What we haven't explored here is non-binary toys, and that's where a lot of the toy industry is moving towards, where the toy isn't gendered. But again, it's about us noticing this, how we have the conversations, what do we do about it, and how we empower children to do the same. Some common examples around language include gendered language and stereotypes. So some of the images I've shared here. So the boy stuff book. So it's secret weapon, it's space stuff, it's exciting, it's something moldy and dirty. And then for the visual and color cues for the girls, it's treasures, it's sparkly stuff, it's magic stuff, and pink and fluff and lovely. Then narrow and limiting portrayals. So these little slippers say belle comme maman and intelligent comme papa, which means beautiful like mom, intelligent like dad. And what message is this giving to our children before they can even walk? And then the impact on the development and aspirations of children is quite impactful. So if we look at this visual here, you can't be what you can't see. So when we look at this one here, first of all of the children in this are white, all of the careers are white, all of the careers around strength are all men. And then we have a nurse as a woman, a mermaid as a woman, a witch as a woman, and a maid as a woman, which, reading between the lines, is given quite a harmful message to girls and also boys and parents raising them. So the very common examples that exist here are boys' toys is battle, power, win, conquer, build, create, explore, adventure, danger, action, and active and assertive. And then around girls, it's look pretty, be a model, nurture, care, shop. And it's around glamour, it's around beauty, it's around relationships, and it's all about being passive, supportive, and demure, which is fine, but not whenever your whole identity is constructed around this. And then in the media, there still is a lot of underrepresentation and stereotypical roles. Disney has improved quite a lot, but I did include this image here of Mirabel as great that there is a female hero, but actually she's the one without the magic power. So you really can, whenever you see it, you can't unsee it. In the language and framing bias, in the most recent Fantastic Four, there still only is one woman and three men as a protagonist of the latest movie. Sky and Paw Patrol, this kind of touches into the Smurfette effect, where there is a group of characters and there's only one female or woman put into that role. And Sky in Paw Patrol really is pink and fluffy and friendly and lovely. And then we have Bull the Builder in Peppa Pig, again, a construction worker, reinforcing potentially harmful gender stereotypes. So this can show up as underrepresentation. So even when we look across the media, expert voices and commentators quoted in news stories are mostly men. We as women are more likely to be portrayed as experts in, or less likely to be portrayed as experts in major media outlets. The language and framing bias, including terms like emotional, nagging, focusing on appearance, on family, over qualifications around coverage on the media. Women also are very often objectified or sexualized in the media too. There's a reinforcement of stereotypes here, and then the societal impact can be increased sexism, harassment, can limit women's ambitions, harm body image, and psychological well-being. And we'll have seen in the last couple of weeks, trans women also have been hugely vilified in the media, and the impact of this for the trans community and for communities outside the LGBTQ plus one is extremely damaging. So how do we challenge bias? We model behaviour. Think about our language, our words, what we watch, what we listen to, our conversations, who we hang out with. And when we see things that flag up maybe misogyny or unfair stereotypes or narratives, this is a really good opportunity to have critical conversations with children. Look at the role models that we have in our homes, in our schools. Feel free to reach out to schools, to reach out to caregivers, and offer support or offer suggestions in how to diversify play and the language that we use as well. Number 2, recognizing and challenging gender bias. So when we see it, which we often do, how do we challenge this bias? And very often it is, as we've just touched on a little bit, meaningful conversations. So describe and label emotions. Do have that conversations with children, especially boys and teen boys as well. We can talk about where these feelings might come from, have the words to label them, what it feels like, and really assuring them that this is absolutely normal and human to have these feelings. Discussing real life and current events. The trans agenda at the minute is a really important one that we could be having with children, with child appropriate language, and exploring what that looks like and the damage that could do, and how we really can be inclusive and welcoming to all. Avoiding punishment for emotions, so encouraging children and older children to step into those emotions, to accept them. We can use play and stories, and I will recommend some book lists at the end of this that you can use for those conversations, because they're not always easy to have. And really talking openly about our own emotions. And that can be that I'm feeling sad today, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling tired, I'm quite hungry, so I'm grouchy. All of those, I'm normalizing those conversations. When we are encouraging critical thinking and emotional connection with children, ask open-ended questions. So ask children why someone might feel that way. It might be a narrative in a story. It could be something that happened in an educational setting. Discuss how sometimes people do things or say things that don't match their own feelings, and really model that empathy and thought process around your own feelings too. And do encourage acts of kindness and share times and empower children when you and them have displayed acts of kindness. There could be emotional charades prompts. For example, can you show me, for younger children, you show me what sadness looks like on your face? When you feel happy, what makes you smile? How do you know when someone's feeling scared? And that can literally just start a conversation and continue the conversation around this. Then some story-based discussion questions, and they can be used in the books that we share here. So for example, I heard someone say that boys don't cry. What do you think about that? Why do you think the princesses need saving? Do you think she could have saved herself? And what do you notice about how boys and girls were treated in this book? So those little questions and prompts are really, really helpful for how we talk to our littles from a young age. Then we could have perspective taking scenarios. So imagine someone made fun of you or one of your friends for what you were wearing or because of how you acted. How would you feel? What would you do? And how would you like your friends to react? And current events, which is a really important one, especially for older children. How do you think it feels like to be in that situation? How would you act here? And what do you think of the language that they used here? And this really can start some real deep critical thinking and meaningful exploration of empathy and of feelings and inclusion. And number 3, equip children to be active bystanders. So being an active bystander, it can be showing support. So simply from knowing the difference between what's right and what's wrong and be able to show that support is incredible. Learning the words and the language and the body language to be able to speak up and support someone, to interrupt the behavior when it's safe, to ask an adult for help, and using body language as well to diffuse any tension or to feed into being a helpful active bystander. So some practical ways could be the stop, support, seek framework, and it could be notice what's happening and choose not to join in. Then support, stand or sit with the person being targeted, or simply say something kind and distracting and seek help. If it feels too hard, please reach out to an adult. So stop, support, seek is something really simple that we can share with our children. And practice use of words and language around this. So you can have little scripts like that's not kind, you don't have to say that. Why can't she do it too? Let's include everyone. And again, it's creating scenarios or even role play conversations where children feel like they can practice this. And again, encouraging children to name the behavior, not the person. So instead of attacking a person and calling them mean or unkind, it can just be as simple as that wasn't kind. Let's include, let's change the narrative, let's play something different. So other ways to equip children to be active bystanders could be gender-based inclusion. For example, if a child says that boys can't dress up, give children and young people an opportunity to practice what they might say. It could be, that's not true, anyone can play. It could be just being a supportive bystander, which could look like saying something like, that looks great, we all should dress up. Stereotyping language, which often comes up, could be girls that are bad at football, and little words like, but that's not fair, girls can play football too, and giving some examples maybe of incredible women's football teams or girls that play the game well. And it could be a follow-up conversation of let's make teams based on who wants to play, not gender. Teasing or ridicule, which as we know shows up often, and that could be ridicule or teasing about what they're wearing, what they're playing with, how they speak, how they act. And really it is just finding the words to encourage inclusion in terms of all play being fun, and that all children and all people can play with dolls or play sports or play football and move beyond those expectations. And it's modeling that support as well. So, a recap for today. Tip number 1, recognize and challenge gender bias in real life. We looked at how gender stereotypes can show up in toys and media, in books, classroom roles, and language. And excuse me. And subtle signals that children can pick up on. For example, strong, active boys, pretty, fashionable girls. And action steps: audit your environment, look at your bookshelf, look at your resources, look at your toys, your language, and media. And if you need to diversify this or have the conversation around it. Challenge stereotypes out loud. Colours don't have genders. Everyone can lead. Anyone can be what they want to be. And provide that diverse representation in stories and role models. Tip number 2, foster empathy and respect through conversations. So we explored how to talk about fairness and inclusion in age-appropriate ways, helping children reflect on emotions and question injustice. And action steps could be using open-ended and gentle prompts. Simply, what do you think about that? Can be discussing stories and real-life moments. How would you feel if that happened to you? And it can be normalizing and encouraging mistakes and growth. We're all learning. And tip number 3, equipping children to be active bystanders. We explored what it means to be a confident, safe, and supportive bystander, how children can take small, powerful actions, and some action steps could be teaching the stop, support, seek strategy. It can be practicing phrases like "that's not kind" or "let's be inclusive," and using role play and real life scenarios to rehearse responses. So some resources that I love to share, some of my favorite books that we use very often when we are navigating this theme and these issues with children. And then we have some adult books as well, which are brilliant resources. And if you look at Let Toys Be Toys, the Spark and Stitch Institute, and Gender Spectrum for further support and resources. And we are offering an offer on our Tackling Misogyny with Children book bundle, which includes Julian is a Mermaid, Pink is for Boys, and Speak Up, which are brilliant resources to have the conversations. So please feel free to email any questions or comments you have, and follow us. Instagram is our main platform, and we are delighted that we have launched the podcast. We have a new episode coming out tomorrow, and you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter for updates, resources, and more. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We look forward to our webinar next month, and do keep in touch. Bye.